Tributes are pouring in for legendary singer-songwriter Kris Kristofferson, who died yesterday at 88. Kristofferson wrote songs for Johnny Cash and Janis Joplin and was also a Rhodes Scholar, a decorated U.S. Army pilot, a firefighter, a boxer, and an award-winning actor.
Kris Kristofferson's family just confirmed the rumors, and it's more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. For years, the country legend battled with devastating disease in silence. Even in his darkest moments, Kris kept creating, writing songs, and working on a final novel that remained unfinished when he passed. Now, his family has revealed the truth about his incredible resilience and the legacy he left behind. What they've shared will leave you speechless. Kris Kristofferson was born on June 22, 1936, in Brownsville, Texas. It was a small town right on the border with Mexico. His father was an Air Force officer, which meant Kris grew up in a strict and disciplined household. But living near the border also gave him something special. Early exposure to Mexican culture, music, and language. In fact, Kris spoke Spanish before he learned English. His mom always reminded him to treat everyone equally, and he never forgot the unfair treatment he saw towards Mexican people in those days. The lively music and parades he grew up around also left a mark on him. Because of his dad's job, Kris's family moved a lot. He lived in many places, even outside the United States. By the time he was a teenager, he had already seen so much of the world. But no matter where they went, he always remembered his childhood in Brownsville. He called it one of the happiest times of his life. After finishing college, he won a Rhodes Scholarship to study at Oxford University in England. This was a huge honor. At Oxford, he studied English literature, spending a lot of time reading poets like William Blake. But even while he was focused on school, he couldn't let go of music. He formed a small band and kept writing songs. This is when he started to see songwriting as something more serious, not just a fun hobby. Studying literature while writing music helped him create his own unique style. One fun fact about Kris is that he wrote his first song when he was just 11 years old. It was called "I Hate Your Ugly Face." The lyrics were funny and a little immature, but they showed his talent for expressing strong emotions. One line went, "I just hope you're miserable, you sorry-looking mess." This was just the start of his long journey as a songwriter. That little song hinted at the raw honesty he would bring to his music later on. After graduating from Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar in 1960, he joined the U.S. Army and quickly rose to the rank of captain. He learned tough skills like flying helicopters and finishing ranger training. While serving in West Germany with the 8th Infantry Division, he seemed to have a bright future in the military. But deep down, Kris wanted something else. In 1965, he was offered a dream job teaching English at West Point, a position many would have loved. But Kris shocked everyone by saying no. He wanted to follow his heart and become a songwriter. His decision upset his family, who were proud of their military background. They were so angry, they cut ties with him. Then, a few years later, his wife left him too. These were hard times for Kris, but they also gave him the pain and emotion he poured into his songs. Life in Nashville was far from easy. From 1965 to 1969, Kris worked as a janitor at Columbia Recording Studios, earning just $58 a week. While cleaning floors, he left demo tapes on desks, hoping someone important would listen. But getting noticed wasn't simple, especially by someone like Johnny Cash. After Cash ignored his tapes, Kris did something crazy to get his attention. On June 17, 1969, Kris borrowed a helicopter from his side job with the National Guard. He flew it straight to Johnny Cash's house and landed on the lawn. Cash, who was napping, was woken by his wife shouting that someone had landed a helicopter in their yard. At first, Cash thought it might be a crazy fan, and considered shooting at the chopper. But when Kris stepped out holding a beer in one hand and a tape in the other, Cash couldn't help but listen. The song on that tape was "Sunday Morning Coming Down." Cash liked it so much that he performed it live on his TV show in 1970. The network asked him to change the lyrics, but Cash refused. He sang the line, "Wishing, Lord, that I was stoned," exactly as Kris wrote it, looking straight at him in the audience. The song became a huge hit, reaching #1 on the country charts and winning Song of the Year. It also changed Kris's life forever. Within months, Kris went from being a janitor to a famous songwriter. By the end of 1970, he had written 3 of the 5 songs nominated for a Grammy that year. Big names like Janis Joplin, Waylon Jennings, and Ray Price started recording his songs. Looking back, Kris said, "That song allowed me to quit working for a living." As Kris became more successful, he started getting the recognition he deserved. In 1985, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Then, in 2004, he joined legends like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson in the Country Music Hall of Fame. This honor was even more special because Kris found out about it live on TV during an interview. His career also earned him the Johnny Mercer Award and a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Meanwhile, Kris Kristofferson's rise in Hollywood is also full of fascinating moments. His big break came in 1973 when he played Billy the Kid in the movie Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. At 36 years old, Kris was much older than the 21-year-old outlaw he portrayed. But that didn't matter. His age gave the character a deeper, more thoughtful side that people loved. Kris didn't just act in the movie, he helped bring in Bob Dylan. At first, Dylan was only supposed to write a song for the film, but he ended up creating the entire soundtrack and even acting in a small role. One of the songs Dylan wrote, "Knockin' on Heaven's Door," became a classic. It's still one of the most famous songs from the movie and added to its place in pop culture. In 1976, Kris reached a new level of fame with A Star Is Born. He played John Norman Howard, a rock star struggling with fame and addiction. This role earned him a Golden Globe Award and made him a household name. What's surprising is that Kris wasn't the first choice for the part. Elvis Presley was originally considered, but his manager wanted Elvis to have top billing over Barbra Streisand. So the deal fell through. Kris took the role instead and made it his own, using his real-life experience as a musician to make the character believable. The film was a huge success, earning millions and becoming one of the biggest hits of the year. Kris didn't stop there. Over the years, he appeared in more than 100 films, playing all kinds of characters. He could be a cowboy, a singer, a president, or even a vampire hunter. In 1995, he played Abraham Lincoln in a TV movie called Tad, and critics praised his performance. But one of the most surprising roles came later, when he joined the Blade movies. At 62 years old, Kris played Abraham Whistler, a tough mentor to Wesley Snipes' vampire hunting character. The first Blade movie was a hit, and Kris stayed with the series for its sequels. These films introduced him to younger audiences and showed that he could still captivate people, even in action-packed superhero movies. Balancing his acting and music careers wasn't always easy, but Kris managed to do both. In the late 1970s, while his acting career was booming, his music wasn't doing as well. He joked that some of his albums from that time were barely noticed. But he didn't give up. He kept writing songs and performing, even as he focused more on movies. His experience as a musician added authenticity to roles like the one in A Star Is Born, and his acting often inspired his songwriting. The two careers worked together, making his work feel personal and real. Kris Kristofferson's personal life was full of ups and downs, just like his career. He went through 3 marriages, each one leaving a mark on his journey. His first marriage was to Frances Beer, his high school sweetheart. They got married in 1960 and had 2 children, Tracy and Kris Jr. But as Kris's career started to take off, the strain became too much, and they divorced in 1969. During this time, Kris tried writing a novel, but when no one wanted to publish it, he joined the Air Force to support his family. In 1973, Kris married singer Rita Coolidge, and their relationship became a hot topic for the public. They had a daughter, Casey, and even worked on music together. But their marriage was not smooth. There were issues with drinking, fights, and infidelity. After 7 years, they divorced in 1980. Rita later admitted their relationship was intense, but said people were fascinated by their story. Kris's third marriage turned out to be the longest and most stable part of his personal life. In 1982, he met Lisa Myers at a gym in Malibu. Kris, fresh from his second divorce, wasn't looking for anything serious, but when he saw Lisa, a law student, he came up with an excuse to talk to her. He asked to borrow some gym equipment just to start a conversation. That small moment led to something big. They got married in 1983 and stayed together for over 40 years, until Kris's death in 2024. Family was very important to Kris. He had 8 children from his 3 marriages. Tracy, his oldest daughter, went to Stanford and later became an actress. Casey, his daughter with Rita, became a musician and released an album in 2019. Kris and Lisa had 5 children together: Jesse, Jody, Johnny, Kelly Marie, and Blake. The family stayed close, and in 2020, Johnny even took over managing Kris's music catalog when he retired from performing. Kris Kristofferson wasn't just a country music legend. He was a bold activist whose political views often clashed with the conservative country music scene. His activism grew in the 1980s and 1990s, culminating in the 1990 album Third World Warrior. Songs like "Don't Let the Bastards Get You Down" openly criticized U.S. military actions with lines like, "They're killing babies in the name of freedom." His shift toward activism began during the Vietnam War. After hearing horrifying stories from returning soldiers, like prisoners being thrown from helicopters, his views changed. In 1991, Kristofferson criticized the U.S. invasion of Iraq on New Zealand TV, calling the media coverage propaganda. He knew such comments could alienate fans, but didn't hold back. A famous confrontation in 2003 showed his fearless nature. At Willie Nelson's 70th birthday concert, a younger country star, believed to be Toby Keith, told him, "None of that lefty out there tonight, Kris." Kristofferson, a former Army Ranger, responded sharply, questioning the star's patriotism and whether he'd ever killed for his country. The heated exchange highlighted the deep political divide in country music at the time. Kristofferson's activism came at a cost. Supporting causes like Palestinian rights and Native American activist Leonard Peltier led to fewer work opportunities. He once admitted losing jobs after performing concerts for Palestinian children, but stood firm, saying, "If that's the way it has to be, that's the way it has to be." In 1992, he defended Sinead O'Connor after she was booed at a Bob Dylan tribute concert. As the crowd jeered, he walked on stage and told her, "Don't let the bastards get you down," words that later inspired his song Sister Sinead. In 2009, Kris Kristofferson's life took a difficult turn. At 73, the legendary singer and actor started forgetting things. He couldn't remember the lyrics to songs he had written, and sometimes he even forgot what he was doing in the middle of it. Doctors told him he had Alzheimer's or dementia. They thought the memory problems were caused by all the head injuries he'd had as a young man playing sports like football and boxing. For almost 7 years, Kris believed this diagnosis. He took medicine for Alzheimer's and depression, but instead of getting better, he got worse. His wife, Lisa Myers, saw him struggle every day. The man who once had such a sharp mind and poetic soul was slipping away. It was heartbreaking. Kris's career also suffered. He had trouble remembering lines for acting roles and couldn't perform on stage like he used to. He had to cut back on public appearances and creative work. It seemed like the life he'd built was slowly falling apart. Then, in 2016, something incredible happened. A new doctor decided to test Kris for Lyme disease. The test came back positive. It turned out he didn't have Alzheimer's at all. He had Lyme disease, an illness caused by a tick bite that had gone untreated for years. This discovery changed everything. Once they knew the truth, Kris stopped taking the medications for Alzheimer's and started a 3-week course of antibiotics to treat Lyme disease. The change was amazing. Lisa said it was like getting her husband back. He started remembering things again, and his energy returned. Some days were still tough, but the improvement was undeniable. One of Kris's friends even called it a miracle, saying it was like Kris had come back to life. In 1990, Kris Kristofferson made a big change in his life. He left the busy world of Hollywood and moved to Hana, a quiet little place on Maui. It wasn't just about finding a new home, it was about finding peace. He wanted to leave behind the noise and chaos of his old life. Hana was calm and close-knit, reminding him of the town where he grew up in Texas. He said, "It's like coming home." Life in Hana was simple, and that's exactly what Kris needed. He spent his days enjoying the small things. In a 1999 interview, he was even filmed riding a lawnmower around his yard. He joked about being the groundskeeper of his own home, calling it an old samurai poet warrior's house. It was a far cry from his life as a famous singer and actor, but it made him happy. In 2016, Kris released his final album, The Cedar Creek Sessions. The songs were full of the deep, honest emotions that had always made his music special. Fans loved it, and it became a fitting end to his career. Not long after, in 2021, he officially retired. He had actually made the decision in 2020, but the announcement was delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. On September 28, 2024, Kris passed away peacefully at home in Maui. He was 88 years old and surrounded by the people who loved him most. His family shared a message with fans. "When you see a rainbow, know he's smiling down at us all." It was a simple and beautiful way to honor his memory. When Kris Kristofferson died, the world was flooded with messages of love and respect. Barbra Streisand, who starred with him in A Star Is Born, shared a special memory. She remembered seeing him perform for the first time at the Troubadour in Los Angeles. "I knew right away he was something special," she said. Their chemistry in the movie was magical, and they stayed close friends for life. Dolly Parton also shared her feelings, calling him a great writer, actor, and friend. She said, "I will always love you." An unexpected tribute came from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He revealed something many didn't know. Kris had mentored him when he was new to acting. Johnson said Kris taught him to stay true to himself, both as a person and as an actor. He credited Kris with helping him succeed in Hollywood. This showed how far Kris's influence went, reaching beyond music and into the lives of younger performers. Kris's family shared big plans to honor him. On October 5, 2024, they announced the Kris Kristofferson Foundation. This charity will help young songwriters and actors who don't have much money. Each year, it will give $50,000 to 10 talented people, helping them chase their dreams. The family also planned a special concert for June 22, 2025, which would have been Kris's 89th birthday, called Me and Bobby McGee. A celebration of Kris Kristofferson, it will be held at the Hollywood Bowl. Famous musicians like Willie Nelson, Emmylou Harris, and John Prine will perform, with all the money going to the foundation. Kris's widow, Lisa, shared something more personal. She announced that she would finish Kris's unfinished memoir, Highwayman: My Life in Words and Music. The book will include his own stories, along with memories from his family and friends. It will give fans a deeper look into Kris's life, his time in the military, his struggles with addiction, and his rise to fame. A few weeks later, on October 15th, the family revealed something they had kept private for years. Kris had been living with Lewy body dementia, a rare illness, for the past 7 years. This was why he had stepped away from public life in 2020. Kris didn't want people to focus on his illness. He wanted to be remembered for his work. Even during his hardest days, he kept writing songs and poetry. The family announced plans to release his final creations in a collection called The Last Outlaw: Final Thoughts and Melodies. This album will feature 15 songs and spoken word pieces that Kris wrote during his last years. But there was an even bigger surprise. Kris had been working on a novel. The book, The Silver-Tongued Devil, is about a country singer struggling with memory loss and searching for redemption. Kris almost finished it before he passed. His close friend, Ethan Hawke, will complete the book, which will come out in late 2025. These moments show how Kris never stopped creating, even when life became difficult. His family and friends are making sure his legacy lives on, not just through his music, but also through the lives he touched and the art he left behind.